Hello and welcome to the 8th episode of the Pirate Rugby Pod. And thank you to our 104 YouTube subscribers. For those of you here for the rugby chat, we have plenty of that planned over the next week as both Hugh and I head to France to take in a game. And those of you here for shorts of Thistle the Cat, those will keep coming too.
As audio listeners may have noticed at the beginning of the podcast, we now have adverts, and that's because we are now part of the Sports Social Network. This means nothing will really change from the point of view of the audio listeners, apart from you'll be getting adverts every now and again. We hope that's okay. But it also means that now you can get us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So if anybody would rather listen to us on Apple, you find it more accessible there, please jump over. If you could give us a review and a 5-star rating, that would be lovely. That really helps us out and to grow the show. If you are watching on YouTube, nothing will change from your point of view, and we hope that you keep enjoying the show as much as you have been. And yes, as Ender said, thank you to the 100+ subscribers. That's really blown us away. And finally, of course, jump over to our Substack. The link will be in the description below. We will have long form written content in there where you can sign up completely for free, put your email in, and you'll get an email every time we drop a new piece of content. But now over to Ender to introduce our wonderful guest this evening.
Yeah, so now that's out of the way, we're delighted to introduce our guest for the week, one of the busiest and most in-demand podcast guests in world rugby, the go-to man for anything related to rugby on the continent, Senor Francisco Isaac. Boa noite, Francisco. Did I butcher that? Did I?
Oh no, it was quite. It was very good. Yeah, boa noite. Yes, that's cool. So hello, thank you for inviting me. That's such a big compliment in the beginning of the podcast. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to talk because now I'll become so arrogant with that intro. But thank you guys for inviting me in. I always wanted to be a pirate, and arg matey, I am one pirate from Portugal joining some Welsh ones.
Welsh and Irish. Don't tar Ender with our
brush. Beautiful. So coastline pirates. It's perfect. Perfect.
So now, yeah, great stuff. I just want to move on to our usual start, which is talking about the moments of the week. I might let you start, Hugh, if you want.
Yeah.
What was your rugby moment of the week?
My moment of the week was during the England versus Japan game, where I had two England supporting friends message me within minutes of each other saying that they hoped Japan won. That they didn't want England to win because they were hating watching the game so much. So that kind of made me smile. That it was two guys who don't know each other, completely independent of each other. One of whom was my friend Jake, who I know listens. So shout out, Jake. Hope you're having a good day, mate. Yeah, so that made me giggle. How about you, mate? What was your moment of the week?
My moment of the week was, I don't know, Francis, have you seen this? I don't know, Hugh, you've definitely seen it, but it was Andy Farrell's press conference when he was asked about Hansen again and why he was, whether he was dropped for the last game or over a disciplinary issue, or was he out on the beer the night before a game or something like that. That was, so basically he didn't make the squad for was it the Romania game? No, it was the it was the Tonga game. He didn't make this. Yeah, it was the Romania game. Yeah, and he didn't make the squad. And the rumor was that he was, there was some disciplinary issue. It was denied from the outset, and then Faz was asked about it again in the press conference, and he got quite angry, shall we say. And then when Hansen came out to be interviewed, he was, of course, asked again, and Peter O'Mahony stepped in. And I don't know if you've seen many clips of Peter O'Mahony, but he can give you that look where he puts the fear of God into you. And I think he gave that to the journalist, but the journalist asked again, and thankfully Hansen kind of replied with the joke and said that there was a fight or whatever, and then of course completely dismissed it and went on to talk about vaping and his friends drinking and vaping at 12 o'clock in the morning, and how he found that tough to watch on Snapchat. But
with Faz, like Andy Farrell is a intimidating man, and the way he just sat down in the press conference and looked around and went, "You," and it's like, oh my god, that journalist must have absolutely crapped his pants. But in terms of moments of the week, Francisco, you posted something on Twitter the other day about meeting someone in the airport, a rugby fan in the airport. Tell us about that.
Well, if you let me, as my first and maybe only time in the podcast, can I have 2 moments of the week, very quick?
Of course you can.
Okay, the first one is very quick because it's when the Fiji captain Wasia Nasivalu, if I'm saying the name right, when they asked the head coach of Fiji, if they were going to support Wales in the upcoming Australia Wales match, and well, the captain just laughed. And I think it's beautiful because it's genuine when you have someone doing that. But the moment of the week for me, it was that because at 4 a.m. or 3 a.m., sorry, you are not ready to have the type of not confrontation, but encounter with someone that you didn't know from other country. And we started talking. He didn't have excellent English, and the first thing he said is, "I don't speak good English," and I understood. But after 1 hour talking, he looked at me and said, "You have a Rugby World Cup. You work there?" "Yes, I work as a journalist." "I went to the game tonight," and I understood. We talked. "You like the game?" "Yes, Portugal, Portugal, Portugal," or Portugal, Portugal, Portugal. Because did you sing it? "Yes, yes, I loved it. Big game." And then I continued, and he told me something that really went inside of my heart and mind or spirit, whatever you want to call it, or soul, by saying that I had tickets for the World Cup at my home, but because of the hurricane, we had to it was canceled, so I could not miss it again. And I came here on purpose to see Portugal against Wales. And then I asked, "Wait, when did you arrive?" "This morning, 11 or 12 p.m." And I was like, "And you're leaving already?" "Yes, I came just to see the match." And it just shocked me. And I have an idea, and that if I make it public, no one can steal it from me. It's one day I would like to write about this, about the heroes of rugby, or rugby heroes, because these people are the rugby heroes. They can imagine the distance he made to come to Europe. He came to have a vacation, but one of the sole purpose of his vacation to Europe was to come and watch a Rugby World Cup match, and it was Portugal against Wales, which I think was perfect because the stands were beautiful, all in red. That's not my color, but it worked for that match. And he just loved it from the first minute. He loved the Porch. He's a Welsh. And then after it, he just put his backpack on his back and just went to the airport to leave from Nice to go to Spain to catch a flight to Tokyo again. And if you want to explain to people what's rugby outside of the elitist community, and we know there's a lot, it's this. It's people who go miles and miles and miles, or kilometers, or whatever is your your distance metric. And I didn't cry. I won't go with that, but it shook me, and I was quite happy because he enjoyed a great game on the World Cup, and it was perfect for me.
That's fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So
it puts our rugby moments of the week to shame, I think.
Yeah, it does. But that's why we get these. That's why we get these wonderful guests on to come and share those things with us. Okay, guys. So let's jump into the games of the weekend. Enzo, do you want to start us off, mate?
Yeah, sure. So I think there's only one place to start with, I guess. So Wales v Portugal. Francisco, like, what were your thoughts on the game overall and how it went?
My thoughts linger between two realms. The realm that Portugal could have won it, and you have the proof. I think in the first half, if Portugal scored those 4 opportunities they had, the game could be different. I won't talk about the penalty kicks that Samoa Marks missed with a lot of thoughts because he was injured from the calf, and it was incredible how he almost played the full 80 minutes with which is a big injury in football or rugby because we need the legs to run. But those 4 opportunities, one of them was really well chased by Faletau, was incredible moment because everyone always is sorry for the cursing, shit on Faletau and he showed again why he is who he is. And there was some opportunities, and there's then the realm of reality that Wales did what they had to do to win it. And I don't agree with the 20-point margin, maybe 7-10 for what happened in the game. And I think some people said Wales played ugly or played badly, and I agree at some extent. But you have to give merit to Portugal how they closed down Wales. I think the Welsh team didn't expect the physicality in the defense that the Lobos brought to the pitch. At some points, you could see it, Ascombe or Morgan, a bit frustrated how the team couldn't win the gain line, which for any team is a must if you want to score tries or drive the team forward. What really helped Wales was the scrum. Portugal didn't break that much, but broke at the critical moments, and Wales took those opportunities. And I think it's a loss, but look, who would ever thought that Portugal would lose by 20 points against a good Welsh side? It wasn't the A team, but wasn't the worst ever team from Wales, and I think everyone in Portugal and from the TU2 nations should be happy with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, was it 25, 30 years ago, Wales put 100 points on Portugal?
So next year, 30 years.
Yeah, and now look at us in the same pool at the World Cup, and it's a game that, like you said, Portugal had the opportunities. I think two things I want to ask you. There was one moment, I think it was in the first half, where Portugal off a line out, their 10 got the ball quite deep and chipped, and I think both centres chased after it. Is that a quite typical Portugal tactic that they do a lot?
Yes, normally we do it. I think it's a mild copy for what the All Blacks did until like 5 years ago. So it's how Barrett or Maunga, sorry, do it. So a cheap kick without anyone expecting, and who follows is the centers. Most of Portugal's game, or the way that we win the gain line, or we surprise everyone, is the working force by the centers. So if Appleton and Lima are injured, or if a team can block them, Portugal will have less attacking momentum or capacity, and that is one of our techniques to throw the game, because everyone is expecting Martos, Torti, or Vassan Pintos, Nunes get to follow the ball. No one is expecting the two centers or even a flanker to do it, and we normally do it, and we have the units to work those type of tricks.
Yeah, and then the other question I want to ask you is a question that I'm completely stealing from our friend Kalen, which is the try that Portugal scored. It turned out to be a consolation in the end, but the way it came about and the kind of reaction of the players, does that moment is that bigger than the game and the result itself for you, for Portuguese rugby?
I think so, because look, for long periods of time in the match, we had critical opportunities to score a try, and we were missing. Something was not going well, and at some point, I think the stands were a bit desperate for a Portuguese try, and start thinking, okay, we are not going to score a try tonight, but we can't. And when it happened in the most quickest way possible, quickest and cleanest way, because it was just lineouts. Everyone was expecting a mole, and then the lock did something they call a Ronaldinho Gaúcho, so a no looking pass, and it worked perfectly. I think the moment when they scored the try, and I was in the media stand, I thought the stadium was coming down. To be honest, I went a lot to football matches, and it was the same, or the uproar was even bigger, because it was just incredible how everything came down at just that point of the try.
That's fantastic. It's great that came across in the stadium as well, and I think it will be a famous try just because of almost the arrogance of it, the way that, like you say, the no look, and the way the smirk on the hooker's face before he threw the ball in and things. That's fantastic.
Everyone was talking about Manny Lebach, but that was the moment for me.
Oh yeah.
No
I think from a Welsh point of view, I'd say that we got away with it. I would say that Warren Gatland will go, phew, that was close, and never speak of that game again. I think, it was, we got what we needed out of it, and I don't think we played particularly well. I think the important things were, for us, we got game time into Faletau, who needed it, because I was looking back at the stats for how he played against Fiji, and he wasn't really at it against Fiji, where he's much more like himself in this game. And also Anscombe as well is another one who needed minutes, and he got minutes in this game. So I think that's the most important thing from a Wales point of view, as well as the 5 points, which puts us in a good situation for getting out of the pool. But our next game that we're going to talk about is one that happened a few days ago now, which is France versus Uruguay, which was a hell of a game. Uruguay played so well, and the conversation that it's kind of sparked is, how do we get teams like Uruguay more rugby? So we know about the new proposed structures and things that World Rugby want to bring in is being proposed. We've seen the way that the Uruguayan captain was speaking after the game and saying, you guys, you weren't here before we played this game, but we knew that we had this in us and you should have been here respecting us from the day one. It's kind of quite similar to how the Georgian under-20s captain spoke after they played the All Blacks in the under-20 championship this summer and said, we are not tier 2, we are here to compete, we are playing against the All Blacks and we are challenging the All Blacks. So I guess, Francisco, again, I saw you put something out on socials about it. For you, how do we get teams like Uruguay and all the other tier 2s, Portugal and everyone else at this World Cup, how do we get them playing more rugby?
Well, my plan is quite simple and quite quick. For one, ditch the World League that the Six Nations and the Rugby Championship guys want to do. So the 10 nations, if you want to call it. And the second is a quite simple thing. It's more tours with the T2 nations. It's just quite simple. I was in the stadium talking to Rich Freeman from, he's a journalist for Japan in the World Cup. He's very well known. The first tweet came out from him. Mine came 10 seconds after it, which was fun. And he said to me, as I was talking to him and saying, well, imagine what would be a tour of the Wales national team going to Portugal and Spain. So touring there, play against the Lobos and play against the Leones. And then we can have a third game against Italy and Portugal, Spain. So it could be a Mediterranean tour. And that would bring a lot of fans to the stadium. And not only the rugby, the ones that are already allocated to rugby, but others. Japan and Italy came to Portugal the last 3 years, and it wasn't full stadium. It was 15,000 people, and Portuguese rugby has at the most 8,000 or 9,000. So we are talking that 50% more came from people who are not accustomed to rugby. So they saw it, received a nice ticket, and came to the match and got to see a show. And that's what we want. Wales will win 9 out of 10. Sorry, but it's how we want to sell them the game. Because if we close, and sorry for it can be seen as a rant, but if we close in those 10 nations, I can assure you that in a space of 20 years, they will go bankrupt. We will have died by the time, but the others will have gone completely bankrupt because no one is going to see the same teams play against each other year in, year out. No one. I've seen that happen with basketball when they did the Euroliga some years ago. They tried to close down just with the best sides, and it got to a point of bankruptcy. They had to stop with it and open again, and so on. So rugby should take lessons from FIFA, which is the worst organization to take lessons from, and open and do tours and play play not more games, but enough games with tier 2 nations. Yeah, you won't get an Irish team to go to New Zealand to play 5 games or 4 games against the All Blacks, or 3 games against All Blacks and 2 with the Maori. No, you go to the Pacific, play 1 game against All Blacks, 1 game against Samoa, 1 game against Fiji, but in Samoa and Fiji. And That's it. It's enough. It's completely enough because Ireland went to, and I like the tour they played against Maori, All Blacks, and Blues or Chiefs. I don't quite remember.
I believe it was the Chiefs.
The Chiefs, right? Or the Hurricanes, or something like this. So couldn't they have played with Fiji or Samoa or Tonga? The same thing happens here in Europe, and I think it's time for rugby to finally wake up from this hellish nightmare of being elitist and start working towards something that is more global. Because every time we do a World Cup and we have more nations, you see the impact it has in millions of people that don't have teams in it. So if you go to 24, yeah, maybe we get one or two bigger results, but it will hit more fans, it will hit more kids, and will hit more investment because more companies want to jump in. No one is going to invest in a team that is not going to qualify or will have a hard path to qualifying. The era of easy money from corporations and big companies is over. Nowadays they are worse than ever. So if you want to get their money, you have to show something. So this is my plan. It's quite easy. There's no need for the new Six Nations. No, maybe the rugby championship should get bigger because uh, it's stale already. Fiji and Japan should go in, so Six Nations in the Pacific. And could care less with the Six Nations. It's a private tournament. It's over, done. We can do a European Championship each 2 years if you want, or 3 years. But there's already the Rugby Europe Championship, and we want me to be honest. We don't need the Six Nations. We just need the fans of the Six Nations to watch our tournament and enjoy it. That's it. Just click everything. Rugby Europe is the best organization to work for and see the games because every match is streamed online. What else you want? So
Yeah, well, it's difficult to argue with any of that. I guess something you touched on there. I'll get your thoughts on this, Ender. You know, you've watched Ireland put 80 points on Romania this week, just gone, or last week rather. Then we also saw South Africa put big points on Romania as well, and also the All Blacks put 70 past Namibia. I guess, Ender, from your point of view, what would you say to people who say we don't want to see those kind of games?
It's a really difficult question. Like, what do you say? Like, that was my, like, when watching that Irish game as an Irish fan, I took no, like, it was, like, I was actually probably more excited about the beginning of that game when Romania scored within a couple of minutes than I was for any of the Irish scores. And it might sound strange coming from an Irish fan, but I don't want to see games that are that one-sided. I don't think anybody does. But the cynic in me also just sees would question the value of that game and that kind of scoreline. And this is rugby's biggest brand. It's the biggest occasion, and we don't want to see 80 points plus 70 points plus being put on teams because it just doesn't do anything to grow the game or to. Yeah, it just that one for me, the Irish game, and then when we saw, was it 12 minutes? Within 12 minutes, South Africa had the bonus point secured against Romania. Like that makes it very tough, and we all know why Romania got in at the end. But it does show you how far certain nations need to come. But I don't know what the solution is to that. Like I know Francisco's touched on what we can do, and I think that's valid. But this probably brings up, and I know we have an agenda today and everything, but the thing that I always think about when these debates come up is just the thought of expanding the World Cup from 20 teams to 24 after seeing some of the results. And if you look at previous World Cups as well, like, we're used to this now, and I don't think it's a good thing. And if we do introduce more teams, are we going to see more of those? Now, maybe the counter to that is that, look, it's still good. Like, Romania are going to be better for it, you could argue, because they're getting that exposure, and they're obviously going to generate some income for being in the World Cup and all of that, and it's growing the game in Romania, hopefully. But I can't see how those score lines are good for the game or good for growing the sport. But yeah, interested to get your thoughts on this, Francisco. Like, is it tough for you watching that, or do you kind of just see it as a necessity at this stage? Like, it's tough to watch, but it's what we need to go through until these teams are developed and get to that level.
If we will look just only for Romania, we have a problem. But then you zoom out, and you have Chile, Uruguay, Portugal, Georgia. Japan, I wouldn't consider it a T2 nation. It's a T1 for me at this point. They need to get to the Rugby Championship, but that's another conversation. And you have them doing good scores against other teams. Namibia and Romania have are problems, and Namibia problem, for example, is different. I think it's the lack of games they have in the Rugby World Cup cycle. So the fault is not of the Springboks or the South Africa, is from the African Rugby Committee, which should work better. But also the nations from Europe and South America and Pacific seem to not have any interest in them, which should be otherwise. Romania's problem is elsewhere. Until 2023, they almost won against Argentina. They almost won against Italy. And I'm forgetting, they won against Samoa or Tonga. They had very good games against T2, T1 or powerful T2 sides. 2023, and because I'm doing interviews with some of players, I don't want to open everything up, but something broke inside. I don't know if the players don't trust the head coach. I hope they are not falling for this, because it's the worst thing you can do in a World Cup. If there was, the preparation for the World Cup was bad, because sometimes the plan could be nice or incredible on paper, but when you put on the practical side of things, it just doesn't work it. And I don't know. I think Romania, people shouldn't take it like it will be forever like this, because it won't for the next 4 years. After it, I don't know. Romania has a problem at the moment. It's a country that is not poor, but does have very complicated difficulties money-wise. All sports in Romania are on the verge of bankruptcy or having intense problems. Even football, which was the most known sports from them, of wrestling sports, are falling like crazy. So the situation is normal, and I think Romania problem lies elsewhere. They are not having enough kids coming in through the gaps and going to the national side. So this team of Romania, I think they can still go to the next World Cup, but their problems lie in many places. And I think the Andy Robinson situation, I'm not saying if he was sacked or he resigned, I just don't know, and I don't want to go inside that conversation, was the worst type of decision ever, even if Van Cotter came in to help. 2 months to work with a team, it's not enough. But I understand your point, but I will be careful saying that we are worried with Romania. You should be, but it isn't now the normal practice of the T2 sides, because you have the other ones doing well. Georgia could have won against Australia, because that second half, if Niniashvili didn't do that pop pass he did to Poe, I believe Georgia would have won that game, because that was a moment that sealed the match. If he's stay with the ball or pass it before, I think Georgia would have scored a try and almost equalized it. And but it is what it is. Fiji almost won against Wales. Portugal was very close to doing an upset. Uruguay was very close to doing an upset against the home side at the point that Galtier is putting his best team to play against Namibia, like some sort of.
Saw that today. Yeah.
So when you see this, it's I am from the time, and you two also, that the World Cups, when they played against T2 sides, they changed the 15 players and even the bench. And now it's not like that. Ireland and Springboks against Romania played with very good sides. They didn't let them have a chance, because you can't let these guys have a chance. Look, Portugal. If everyone now doesn't know what to expect from Portugal, and if Georgia wins against Portugal, I think Wales and Fiji will start doubting what can we expect from these guys, because something is changing.
Yeah. I think for me, there needs to be someone in the Soccer World Rugby looking at these 17, 80 points and going, this is bad for our tournaments. We need to make sure that next time when these teams turn up, that they don't get these scorelines put on them. And then, so what do we need to do as a sport to ensure that doesn't happen? And that's what I'd like to be seeing. So that's the end of part one. We are now going, audio listeners will be hearing their first ad break as part of the show. YouTube listeners, you stick around, and we're going to be diving into the rest of the games, starting with Ender's going to be leading our chat on Australia versus Fiji. So yeah, hey, see you after the adverts.
So Hugh, Australia v Fiji, like, could we call this a shock? We've discussed Australia at length and Eddie Jones and everything, but from your perspective, yeah, was this a shock?
I don't know if I really believed in my heart that it would happen, because Australia is one of those teams, a bit like England, that they can be rubbish, but there are some teams that just don't beat them, you know. And I just felt like it was almost too good to be true. Like yes, I believed Fiji were good enough, and yes, I believe that Australia are going through a difficult enough time. But I was really nervous. I was more nervous for this game than I was for any of Wales's games so far, because, you know, as our listeners know, I've really grown to love Fiji and love the players as individuals. So I was like, and Fiji would have been out. That's the thing about this game, is if Fiji had lost, they would have been out of the World Cup, and I just did not want to see that. I did not want to see the players' faces knowing that they were now going home. I didn't want to see Simon Riley be a broken man. I wanted to see these guys happy.
Mm-hmm.
What it triggers is something that Francisco touched on a second ago, is now the conversation is people are looking back 4 years ago and looking at what Japan did in 2019, and rugby as a sport didn't capitalize. They didn't add Japan to the Rugby Championship. Arguably what Japan did in 2019 is more impressive than what Fiji are doing now, because Japan beat Ireland, obviously, and Scotland, both in the pool stages, and beat them convincingly both times. And then obviously went on and had a tough result against the Springboks, who went on to win it in the quarterfinal. We can't make that mistake again as a sport. For me, we can't see this Fiji team with what they're doing with the Drua and the results. Now, their last 3 games, they beat England, they should have beat Wales, and they beat Australia. What's the excuses now for excluding these guys? We can't consider them to be tier 2 anymore. They're playing in Super Rugby, for goodness sake. So there has to be something give, and I think the only reason that they wouldn't be added to the Rugby Championship would be fear from Sansa. Would be those guys thinking, God, if we went to Fiji to play these guys, there's a strong chance that we might lose. I think Australia obviously have just lost. I think Argentina will be worried about losing. The All Blacks and the Springboks maybe less so. But then you've got to remember, the All Blacks have never toured the Pacific Island nations. And there's got to be something deep-rooted about that, where they've decided that it's not for them, whether that's money or something. We know that Rugby New Zealand is in a tough spot at the moment, getting criticism from all angles. There was the report that came out a couple of weeks ago saying they're not fit for purpose as an organisation. We're going to talk about NPC a little bit later on. I don't know, Francisco, do you view, you spoke about Japan not being a tier 2 anymore. Do you view Fiji as tier 2 anymore?
I will only say that Fiji is a tier 1 when they have a seat on the World Rugby Council, not as a consultant, but as a sitting member with the power to vote and decide, and not just a proxy for Australia and New Zealand. That's my issue. And they go inside the Rugby Championship. If Fiji goes in, I believe they'll have more people watching it. So that's what we want. And more people focus on the competition. It's something new. Fiji is a team that attracts a lot of crowds. It's a fun side to watch. I think they are trying to get them ready, because they're coming into the Super Rugby competition. It was something to salvage the competition, but at the same time, I think they were already thinking about inviting them to join as a national team. And I think it's the moment. I was expecting Fiji to win against Wales and Australia, and I got one right. Fiji could have won by more points against Wallabies. I think they got too tactical, and that was good, because they were cynical when they had to be scored. You didn't see that many offloads, because they scored enough points, and you could see in their faces, okay, it's done. The job is done. It's over. And the only myths for me was that they weren't able to take the losing bonus point from Australia, which can be important if they win against Wales this weekend, which I don't believe they will. And I think it's time. Fiji's playing good rugby. There's a good structure, even if the union is a bit corrupt. That's a big problem. As there's a lot of corruption inside it. It's broken. But you just talk. New Zealand union has the same similar problems. The way they treated the women's side, Ian Foster staying in the job, the way they treat some of the local unions and so on. So we can call Fiji with whatever you want, but it's time to give them a shot to be inside. Because sometimes you can correct corruption by giving opportunities to people to shine. Because maybe more responsible people will say, "Okay, we're coming in, we're going to sort things out." That's for me how it works as a nation, and it's a model that's, well, even the most failed democracy is better than any authoritarian government.
And Francisco, one thing you touched on when you were talking about Romania, obviously, was Andy Robinson either being let go or fired or leaving, but it was so close to the World Cup. And you touched on how that probably is one of the reasons potentially why they're not doing well. Because the new coach coming in doesn't have enough time to make an impact on the team and to change things. And for me, that's what we've seen with Australia. I thought it was a crazy decision to let Eddie to have Eddie in charge this close to World Cup, because he hasn't had a chance. Like, he's won he's lost 6 games out of 7 so far during his tenure. What are your thoughts on Eddie Jones and his experience with Australia so far? Like, was it a stupid decision to have him in this close to the World Cup?
I think it was a stupid decision by both the England Union letting go Eddie Jones. Now I think England is playing like Eddie Jones wanted to play in this World Cup. It's his model. It's being practiced. People are calling ugly victories, but I prefer ugly victories to being beautiful in defeat. Sorry to say, it's
a good
point. Yeah. It's if someone comes to my house and say, okay, Portugal is going to win the World Cup by just scoring 1 point, by winning just by 1 point each match, and I say, okay, what's the problem? I make the deal now if you want to. And I think it was a stupid decision by the England Union, and it was a very stupid decision by the Australia. I think they tried to give a notion that this team isn't for the 2023 World Cup, is for the next one. We are focusing on the next one, because we can call it that as a bad excuse, immorality of the world of corporations whatsoever. But I think Eddie's a trailblazer. I knew from the moment, and I interviewed him twice in my life. I loved being with him in the same room talking about rugby. But I knew the moment he stepped in Australia that he wanted to change everything from the bottom to the top. And at the moment, I think he's in the middle, because the top is the guys who are in the board. Give a bit of time, and he will rip them apart when he has the chance. And not calling Michael Hooper. If he was injured, I think it would be nice to hear from Hooper saying, "I was injured. I was not able to go." How it went silently with the night was not the best thing for everyone. And his decision to call some guys that were young, I understand, but in the World Cup, it's the image that you give, and that's why I was not. Fiji winning was not a surprise for me. I was already expecting it, and it was close. But if you watch the game, the momentum is always on the Fijian side and not on the Australian. And I think when people do this type of changes is very weird. When Andy Robinson was fired or resigned in the Romanian union, I was like, this is a very bad decision. Or they bring something that has huge experience, has credentials to the highest order, and the players look to him and say, okay, we want you to guide us to the World Cup. Or I don't know. Eugen Apiok is a good coach. He won a lot of titles and championships in the Romanian competitions, but at this point, something is not working with the players. And I think with Andy Robinson, it worked because it was Andy, and Andy is knowledgeable guy, and so on. It was the same thing with Georgia. Milton Haig was a master of the nowadays levels, and Levin Mesashvili didn't spit out his plan. And Levin is very respected by the players. Players like him. He works with them. He knows everything. He had that almost death situation with COVID in South Africa, and so on. I don't know what's happening with Yapiokin in Romania, but I think if the Wallabies don't qualify from the pools, you can point to the coach. But the same thing with All Blacks, and Foz is there for like 5 years. So do you change a coach or don't? And it depends who you change for, because with Wales it worked with Gatland, but Gatland is Welsh for me at this point. He knows his house. He knows Wales is his home, and he's happy with it. And I think I think Hugh is not unhappy with having a Gatland again. I went to the television to comment the Six Nations for 3 times, and I said to everyone on the station and on the broadcasting, Gatland's plan is not a Six Nations. He doesn't care about the 2023 Six Nations. He cares about the World Cup. Taking Wales to the semi-finals, it's his goal. Because if he does it, everyone's going to say, okay, this was a miracle. And for now, I think Wales, if they win or tie with Australia, it's done. You're in the quarterfinals in the first place, so it's a good spot to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on then, Ender, to your team, another hit out against Tonga. So let us know your thoughts on that game. Kind of same old for Ireland, and this is kind of like a stock performance for you guys at the moment. This is just what you do, is it?
Yeah, Ireland definitely building nicely, you have to say, and we discussed this on a previous pod how they only played 3 warm-up games, and we saw a lot of the other nations play 4, and we're probably seeing why now, because they've had such a good build-up now, and obviously the big one is next week on Saturday against South Africa. That's the big one really, and what's incredible for me again with this performance, like it was a good performance. That there was a bit of sloppiness, but I think that's to be expected. But it's nothing they can't fix, I think, in time for the Springboks on Saturday. Strong set piece, very attacking game. I love watching Irish forwards take the ball on. They don't just play bish bash. They actually step when they take it right before contact. And yeah, and I think you have to talk about Sexton, don't you? We all like seeing that celebration. It was absolutely brilliant. 38 years young, celebrating like that under the posts, and he became Ireland's top point scorer of all time. Like, it's brilliant to see. Conor Murray, excellent game, pushing Jameson at Gibson Park now for a starting spot, I think, on Saturday after that performance. But yeah, it is kind of just business as usual. I don't think I know a lot of people were, Hugh, actually, I'd like to bring this up. Actually, I know we were talking about predictions for this game. I did predict a 40-point victory for Ireland, and they weren't far off. But I just thought, because Ireland, what I liked about it, and it's something that you touched on earlier, Francisco, like Ireland and South Africa, we're respecting tier 2 teams, and I think that's important as well. So you put it like Andy Farrell has picked his best team pretty much against Tonga, which I love to see, really. I know I was on a different podcast about 2 weeks ago, and I said I wanted to see Sexton and others rested, but I kind of admire the decision now to just get the best players on the pitch, and it shows the respect they have for Tonga and for the competition and how they're building. And somehow Ireland have virtually no serious injuries, touch wood, which is brilliant to see. I know Beelan went off for HI, but he's been past fit. That was announced today, so he's good to go on Saturday, which is crucial, especially with his performances in the Six Nations. So yeah, and then from a Tonga perspective, I think, Hugh, we've definitely touched on this before in previous pods. We need to see them playing more games. Yeah. Like, I think it was almost unfair at times when you think about the amount of money that is involved in the Irish team and all the resources that have been put in, and how well the players look after how many games they play. Yet, how many competitive games have Tonga played since the last World Cup? I know you've discussed before how few games they've had against tier 1 opposition, and how are they going to gel and improve without those games?
Yeah, especially with all their new recruits, which isn't a fair way to call it, but they've got new guys coming into their team, and just they haven't had the time to become a team. They're still kind of individuals at this point, which is a shame, and it was very head over heart for a lot of people. I think everyone wants to see Tonga do well, but I think based on what we saw in the Pacific Nations Cup and Tonga's records, just generally, they have traditionally been the weaker of the Pacific Nations sides. So I think you always want to see these guys shock the world like they did against France way back in 2011. But I think with your head screwed on, you kind of saw this one coming, sadly. But what they did do was an absolutely unmissable and fantastic Sipi Tau before the game, which leads us on to the debate that's been gripping literally dozens of people on Twitter. What is the best war dance? What is the best pre game dance between the Haka? You've got the Sipi Tau, which is the Tonga version. You've got Siva Tau, which I believe is the Samoa version, and then the Fijian version. We've got Fijian listeners. I'm so sorry, guys. My European dialect wants to call it the Cibi, but it might be the Kibi, because I think I've learnt that in Fiji they pronounce their consonants like that. So what about you, Francisco? What is out of all those dances, and if you have a preferred Haka as well, let us know which Haka you prefer. But do you have a favourite war dance from rugby?
Well, for me, it's going to be forever the Haka, the normal Haka. Kapau Pango is not my cup of tea. I understand why they do it, but maybe the Sipi Tau is cool. I think it's called Cibi, because Fijians taught me. I can be wrong, because like everyone see Kokanasiga, call him Kokanasiga, but it's not Kokanasiga.
Yes,
it's Thokanasiga. So Thokanasiga. So it's, I think it's Cibi, if I'm not wrong. But any of them, I think they are great products to sell and to enjoy, because it's a bit of tradition inside the pitch. I know some moaners about it, because they say, oh, it's ridiculous because they can and the others can't. So you can do your traditional dance. Why shouldn't? Romania has a beautiful traditional dance. It's a war dance. I don't think so. And I think it's a cultural vibe that I think is very important and brings a certain atmosphere to rugby that it misses in other sports. And we have it, and we should be proud of having it, because it's, look, we live in a world that a lot of people defend the stupidest things, transphobe things, homophobe things, etc. And some nations do some dances, and those guys, oh, this is menace, this is bad for our image. Come on, it's good. If I was on the other side of the pitch, I would be loving it to see it, because it's a proper declaration of, I want to compete and play against you and win and throw it to your face. Okay, then let me try to throw it in your face in the pitch. And I think it's lovely, and I hope we can see a Cibi in the semi-finals.
Me too. How about you, Ender? What's your favourite one?
Same as Francisco. Like the Haka is synonymous with rugby in general, and it's absolutely my favorite. I love it. Like a lot of people, there's a lot of negativity around rugby a lot of the time, especially on Twitter or X or whatever the hell you want to call it. But a lot of people talk about how much, how we need to grow the game and how what's wrong with the game and all these issues, and we need to get more younger people watching it. But I think one thing we should definitely celebrate is the Haka. It's something different. It builds the occasion. I absolutely love when crowds. I much prefer when crowds just absolutely respect it and they go completely quiet, and you can hear everything. I just think it's fantastic. It gets the juices flowing. Even for me watching, I'll never do it. Don't worry on the pod, but like it builds it up nicely. Every game, and I know some people think that they might be a bit sick of it or whatnot, but no, I'd say long live the Haka. And all the war dances, I think they're brilliant. They're unique. It's something to celebrate. I know there was a lot of controversy, wasn't there, about a year ago, when, not sure who it was it Artie Sabia who did this?
It was mid-game in Super Rugby.
That's different.
Oh, that was mid-game. Yeah, that's different.
Yeah, he got banned for it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I'm the opposite. I love it when they jump down and they go ooh and they go into it and the crowd just goes. I love it. It's like something from the Colosseum for me. That it's really that's part of it is I love when the crowd is like you're not just challenging our team, you're challenging us as well. That's all part of the theatre for me. I do have a preferred Haka. I prefer Kamate to the other one. That for me when they're slapping off the thighs, that's what I think of when I think of the Haka. They don't do that one as much, which is a shame. But because you guys have said the Haka, I'm going to say Sipi Tau and say that one was my favourite, to be a bit different. Anyway, so what's our next match, mate?
So what else do we need to talk about? Well, one we certainly have to talk about is England, Japan. Yeah, Francisco, let's start with you. Like, what were your thoughts in the game? There's been a lot of negativity about England's. Look, we all know how they want to play. But yeah, let's more focus maybe on Japan and like, have they regressed since the last World Cup? What are your thoughts?
Well, I wouldn't say regress. I think their plan for England was quite good in the first half until the last 30 minutes of the match, and then the Falcon assist came in and I think broke Japan, because those type of things can break a team, because they were doing excellent defense. They were not letting England in, and with the lucky try, they broke it. And I think Japan didn't regress, but didn't climb a new step. I still think they're a menace. I think against Argentina is 50-50, which is bad for the Argentinians, because I think everyone was thinking that the Pumas would have done well in this World Cup. I can't blame Sheikh on this. I think there's something stale in the Pumas at the moment. Maybe they win against Japan and go to the semifinals. I'm completely wrong, but you look to the type of game and it's just physical, positive. I call it positive aggression. So they throw their bodies, they go in, but breakdown work is non-existent. Ideas with the ball in hands is non-existent. The kicking game is also non-existent or is badly placed. They had a bad game, against England, against a 14-man England, and that concerns me because like 5 years ago or 10 years ago, Argentina will have took that chance to pile drive in and win it. And I spoke with some people about it, and you had, like in 2019 and 2015, Nicolas Sanchez. You before you had Conte Pomi, you had Juan Martin Hernandez. So you had great guys at 10 or 12 that could create, and now there's none. I think they require too much of Lavanini, Kremer, and Matera, and so on. And those guys are completely dominated in today's game, because you just have to have a good combo of loose forwards that can nullify them. And England put them out well and did the same against Japan. Japan has a good combination of loose forwards, but at some point the conditioning came down and England took it and just drove forward. Just a small post-scriptum. The people saying that winning England is bad for the game are people who doesn't understand what winning is about in sports. We're not talking about an essay in a university. We're not talking about you're going to try to your best doing an opera. We're talking about sports, and the goal in a sports team is to win. It doesn't matter if you kick all the game and just play defense for 80 minutes. I think everyone forgot how the Highlanders won the 2015 Super Rugby. Was one of the best seasons ever. They just played defense and waited for the Hurricanes to miss their tries and do interceptions and kicking. Marty Banks, who never was All Black, was the man of the match on that game. And Sopoaga, and I think people are missing the point. Yeah, I want beautiful rugby, but what England did with Japan for me, and I was rooting for Japan, was a show. It was a proper show. There was emotion until the last minute because we wanted to see Japan do something, and England nullified them. And I think for Japanese rugby, they need a win against Argentina, because if they win it, they are mostly qualified for the quarterfinals. Nonetheless, nonetheless, there's Samoa running, and Samoa can be very dangerous. It's a team. Everyone talks about Tonga all the time. Nobody is looking for Samoa, and Samoa is, for me, a team well led, well structured, and with a good rationale. So be careful about Samoa.
Well, why don't we go and talk about them now? So we like to do deep dives on this podcast. We don't have time to do a proper deep dive on a particular subject today, but what we do have the ability to do is to jump on and look at the statistics from some of the games. And what this does is this helps us learn about the different game plans that the different sides are employing, and it lets us learn who are the best players in these teams that maybe we don't get to watch as much. So can you guys see the screen?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. So this is, as I said last week, this is World Rugby's stats page. It's great that they're doing this. It really is a way of involving fans that I think football is really nailing, being able to put out stats in a digestible way, and it's great to see World Rugby do the same. So there's a couple of not perfect things about this website, like I mentioned last week, and I'll mention them a little bit further down. I guess, obviously, we start with the game. Samoa 43 points to 10. With the, I think it was 5 tries, so they scored 1 try fewer than Japan did. But for me, I think Samoa were a bit more impressive in this game than Japan were when they played Chile. I think Samoa had some more detail to their game, and I'll come on to that in a second. But 5 tries, 2 yellow cards each. So that's going to be interesting when Samoa play Argentina. We know that Argentina are not, shall we say, afraid of cards. And Samoa, it looks like they're getting that way as well. So I think maybe a good prediction for that game might be some cards. But in terms of some of the statistics to take away from it, Samoa took a lot of time to get going. So they kicked, obviously, 12 points. Christian Leali'ifano, which for me, of all of the players to change allegiance for this World Cup, I think Christian Leali'ifano is the most impactful one. I think there's probably a lot of people in Australia looking at him now thinking, we could do with a player like you, someone experienced, someone who can manage a game, and someone who can kick their goals, which we've seen plenty of sides, not least the Springboks, struggle from that point of view. So he kicked 12 points to get Samoa into the lead. And then what we're seeing now is that they're big players. The players that we see more often playing in Europe and things are the players who are coming to the fore. No more so than Theo McFarland. He is topping like so many of the stats. He was top tackler by a long way. I'm referring to my stats down here. Wong as well, Nigel R. Wong. He was not only scored a try, but he was a big outlet for them. He created a lot running from deep. He offloaded a lot and created space for others. And I think also Sueteni as well, the centre. Is it La Rochelle or Toulouse he plays for? I want to say La Rochelle.
Who?
Say it's La Rochelle.
Theo McFarland?
No, Sueteni, the centre.
Wait. I have to see it because I don't want to miss. I think it's La Rochelle. Now I don't know if he didn't change clubs. The last.
Okay. We'll say it's La Rochelle. If we're wrong, guys, let us know in the comments. But yeah, we'll say it's La Rochelle. He had a great game for them as well. He didn't top any metrics, but he was high in all of the metrics, which obviously is a show of a good performance. So this game was a builder from me for Samoa. What they were able to do, what they were able to kind of get into it, and obviously 2 tries either side of halftime took the game away from Chile. But from a Chile point of view, they are still employing a very running game. So if I show you, if I can find the meters here, so if you can consider like the possession that they had, Samoa 97 runs, Chile 96, and they were making more meters as well, I think, in a lot of the runs as well. So that kind of shows that they're still doing they're still trying to run everything, and it shows that how players like Fernandez, but also their fullback as well, created a lot for them. If you look at his stats, if I just bring it up here, the player stats, attack. You can see the fullback. Francisco, help me with the pronunciation. Is it Ayazara?
Inaki Ayarza.
Ayaza. Okay. Inaki Ayaza. So he was a big provider for them, a big creator. You can see in terms of defenders beaten, no surprise to anyone, Rodrigo Fernandez was top. This is the guy that all the hype around Chile has been for. Francisco, do you know where he plays? Is he playing for Peñarol? Oh no, not Peñarol. That's the Uruguayan side. Is he playing for Selknam or is he playing in Europe now?
I think he's playing for Selknam. I think there was a chance he coming in to Europe. I'm not sure. I've heard something about him. I know the captain is Sigren is playing in England in the played in championship for quite some time. But just let me clarify something. Like Uruguay, Chile is doing the same thing with a bit less money. Uruguay give pro contracts to every player, so they're pro team now with Peñarol and so on. Peñarol. Uruguay Peñarol is exactly Peñarol, and Chile with Selknam. So it's a good idea. The Super Rugby Americas, they're doing this. They're trying to work on this type of thing so that at least 23 or 30 players are professionals and can work for like 4 years in a row to get to the World Cup. So it is a good idea. It is a good competition. Hugh, can I just say something about the stats?
Yes.
They had more defenders beaten, Chile, and almost as many meters as Samoa. But I think the metric that you should look at is the clean breaks, because Samoa had more clean breaks than Chile with less defenders beaten and less meters won. So it's 1, 2 from your screen, 3, 4, and Chile only 2. So for me, this tells you whatever you need to know about what happened. I saw the game because it was before Portugal. If I'm not wrong, and I think Chile just can't. At the second half, the conditioning come down, and Samoa is a very tough team. They are very aggressive, and they can really rely on it. So for me, this is the difference. It's not the time and that you have the ball in your hands. It's what you do with it. And look, the penalties. The penalties conceded is crazy. It's like what Portugal normally does in game.
Yeah. I think for me, the difference watching some of the highlights back is that Chile's attack is very much about a player doing something magic, like Fernandez doing something magic, making a line break. Whereas Samoa's attack was much more detailed, much more constructed, breaking a team down using a system. So I think that's maybe the next step for Chile and maybe some of the other more emerging nations. I think exactly what you said, Francisco, about when the time passes. I think if you look at on Rugby Pass's website, which I think is here, if you look at it maps out when the points were scored like this and what the gap was, and you will see for a lot of the sort of the tier 2 emerging teams like Chile, like Namibia, who come through, it's around the 55-minute mark that the scoreline starts to go like this, because like you say, the conditioning and the depth on the bench just isn't there compared to some of these other sides. But yeah, for me, it was a good builder for Samoa. They've now got a game against Argentina, which we'll do our predictions for in a bit, which is going to be crazy. But finally, just on this website, and I reached out to Russell Forbes, who's a stats guy on Twitter, and asked about what's going on with the turnovers, because it says that Samoa won 9 turnovers. Samoa 2, but then later on it says that there was 6 in each half and then 4 and 10, and Russell just goes, I don't know, I think that's just an issue with the website. So I think maybe that's a couple of things for World Rugby to improve with this site. But the final things that I'll just say on the stats from the game is that point about turnovers is good. Both of Samoa's flankers got 3 turnovers each, and that goes back to your point earlier, Francisco, about a good back row being able to dominate Argentina. So hopefully that will be I say hopefully, I'm not biased or anything, but from Samoa's point of view, hopefully that's something that they can capitalize on in the game. And the other thing that I noticed as well was that Chile's two of Chile's top tacklers were both their centres. So that kind of talks about how where Samoa were targeting, they were going after them in the midfield and forcing their centres to make tackles. So that was quite interesting from a tactics point of view. So watch out for that in the next game. But yeah, so I think, Ender, are we due an ad break? I can't see the notes anymore. Help me out. Well,
We are not due an ad break yet because we're
We're
going to
not
go
due an ad break.
through. No,
Okay.
which is great news for everyone.
Right, stick me with it, guys. So we are going to now, no, we won't do fantasy team first. We'll do predictions first. So we're going to try and stick to only doing the one round where we accidentally did 2 rounds last week worth of predictions. So the first one is the game that's on tomorrow. So people don't forget there is a game on, well, you'll be listening to this hopefully on Wednesday. So there's a game today at 4:45 UK time. And it's a big game. It's Italy versus Uruguay. So Italy put out obviously a strong team for this one. And the last time these two played was in Italy and it finished 17-10 to Italy. So it was a very close game. And I think Uruguay will be targeting this because potentially if Uruguay win this and then Italy lose to both France and New Zealand, Uruguay could qualify for the next World Cup as 3rd place in the pool, which would be huge. Obviously, it would be a disaster for Italy. But guys, give me your thoughts on this one. Where do you see this one going?
We'll let our guest, Francisco, what do you think?
Well, it's tough because I have in my head the game of Uruguay against France, and but Italy did well against. Maybe it's tough. It's tough. It's all about momentum, and I'm going to say Italy by 12.
Italy by 12. We'll go for that. And then do we have any predictions for the first try scorer? I've got Paulo Adogwu. I don't think he's actually starting the game. I don't have the team in front of me. Apologies if that's wrong, guys.
Nico Terra for me. If he's going, the one who's going to start. Let me check. Hooker. I think it's going to be a hooker who comes in first.
The driving maul, perhaps? Is that what you're thinking?
No, maybe not a driving maul, but maybe a move with the hooker finishing. So we have a bit of flair. A bit of flair.
Nice. Okay, so
let me check.
Sorry, go on.
Yes, Nico Terra. Yeah, yes.
Okay, locked in. So next game, France versus Namibia. So the teams have been announced for this, and France have gone for a very strong team. It's basically only Aldrit away from being their first team. Are we worried? Is 35 are we gonna have to go bigger than a 35 margin?
We are.
Dante's back as well, by the way.
Yeah. It's 75 points for me.
Whoa.
I think it's going to be crazy.
Please let me type it. Okay.
I hope it's not, but it could be with that side out.
Come on, update. There we go. There's the button. Right. Next one. I've got Charles Olivon as the first try scorer because when I accidentally all did these, I'm sticking with that. I don't see any reason to change. Argentina versus Samoa. Right. This is a big game, and I made when I put this 9 points in. This was before Argentina played England, so I can honestly say, hand on heart, I've got no idea what's going to happen in this game. So I need you two to educate me.
Francisco, what are your thoughts? Like Argentina, we're so poor, so they're due a bounce back for me, and it's Czechia. They're going to be motivated, right? But we saw Samoa against Ireland, particularly before the World Cup. Like they're going to be no pushover. What are your thoughts?
I'm just checking in my notes because I have notes from every T2 side. The last games they did. Oh, it's true. They lost against Ireland by just 4 points. And won against Tonga by a lot of points. Oh, this is a difficult one. And they went against Japan. So I'm going to go a bit further, and I'm going to say Samoa by 5.
Ooh, I like it.
Love it, yeah.
I'm going to be the laughing stock.
Do we have any predictions for a first try scorer? I'm going to say I'm going to go, after I've just bigged him up, I'm going to go Wong, Nigel Wong. Where is he? It'd be good if these were in alphabetical order, wouldn't it? Anyway, so that's who I'm going for.
Okay.
Right. Right. This is the Francisco Derby. This is a big game, isn't it? Is there going to be niggle in this game? Is there going to be a fight?
I hope not. No, I'm not much much one for a fight. When I played rugby until I was 35, every time there was a fight with one of the teams I played, I simply just went to the side and watched because I was not a fan.
Yeah, I started him then. I just walked away.
You are one of those. You are a cheeky
I was a scrum
one.
half. I was allowed to get away with that.
You're a cheeky one. You're a cheeky one. Okay. No, it's going to be massive. It's going to be. I think both teams will be at the same time excited and nervous because they know it's their best chance to get their first points. If Georgia wins against Portugal, I think they have a good shot at winning against Fiji and Wales because it will win momentum inside of their heads. If Portugal wins against Georgia, it's going to be massive. Please don't. I'm always. I don't know. It's tough. The last time
You're
they
allowed
played,
to be biased. We
No,
allow bias on this podcast.
look, the last time we played, we did this. Both teams from the Europe sides played each other. Georgia blasted off Portugal, but I talked with the Portuguese captain, and he explained to me something that is very important. Portugal have been training all together for the last 4 months, as Georgia, but for them it's clicked. It's clicking. I would say I'm going with my mind with this one. I'll say Georgia by 3.
By 3.
Yeah, it's going to go to the last minute of the match and maybe a penalty for far away, and then Apracice or Otelo Abshanadze will score from it.
Okay. Do you have a prediction for the first scorer?
I'm going to say Rodrigo Marta.
Was he the one who scored against Wales?
No, that was Nicolas Martin.
Ah, okay.
But now I'm going with Marta. Marta's going to score. Marta's going to score. I'm sure of it. And a bit more.
I'll come
There.
Come back and find it. Like this one, Rodrigo Marta.
Yes, Rodrigo Marta.
Select this player. Okay, next one, England versus Chile. I think we're pretty confident that England are going to win. I think it's a question of how much by. Actually, I tell you what, I'm going to skip and I say that Chile are going to score first, and I think Fernandez is going to score. I think he's going to win a contract, a big contract in Europe. I think he's going to get signed by a top 14's team or something like that. That's my bold prediction. Right. So what about the margin, though? I think we'll agree that England should win. So do you think they'll manage to better their total of 4 tries in a game? Endo,
It's tough to predict, isn't it? I mean, how comical was their first score coming off Marler's head? I wish that was the only try they had scored today. That would have just been glorious. But I'm gonna go with maybe they're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna rack up a big score here. So let's go England by 20, and
20.
Chile to play the better rugby, obviously.
Yes.
But I'd say England are going to stick to their guns
pundits,
as well. And
all the English pundits will be saying we need to be more like Chile, even though they win the match by 20 points. Anyway, right, the big game. Right, let me put my cards on the table for this one. I think the Springboks are going to win. I think the Springboks this is what they do. I think they've played lots of big games this year that Ireland haven't played, particularly in the last 6 months. I think that's going to pay dividends. I think even without Malcolm Marx, we've seen the teams announced just before we started recording, and it's a 7-1 split on the bench for South Africa, which I love. That is Rassie Erasmus going, I'm here. This is my team. What are you going to do about it? Come on, that's him making the bold move first. That's a power move from Razzie. So I think South Africa are going to win, and I'm assuming you're going to back your own side.
I think so, and I think that there's good reason to as well. Building really nicely, no big injuries. Sexton in the form of his life. I think we've enough to do it. I think the 7-1, like it's it's great innovation and all this, but it's incredibly risky. And I don't think like Ireland under Joe Schmidt would have been incredibly worried about this 7-1, or there would have been a lot of focus on South Africa. But under Andy Farrell, we care about Ireland. We care about how we want to play. So I think Ireland are going to win by 8 points. I really do. We beat them last year. We've been building nicely. We're number 1 team in the world for a reason, and just with the depth in the squad now as well. We have a scrum, we have a line out. It looks like Dan Sheehan might be fit, but we saw how well Ronan Kelleher plays. I won't keep going on, but yeah, I think Ireland can do it, and I think it'll be by about 8 points, and Mac Hansen to score first.
Mac Hansen to score first. I tell you what, if Jean,
I'd love to see Johnny score first, but I think it'll be Hansen. If
Jean Klein scores the try that beats Ireland, there's going to be some very conflicted Munster fans knocking around. I've spoken to some Munster fans lately, and if South Africa win the World Cup and there's pictures of Jean Klein holding the trophy, they are going to claim that Munster won the World Cup. Anyway, Scotland versus Tonga. I'm hopefully going to be at this game, so I'm looking forward to it. So I'm going to see. Hopefully, Veer Fafita will be fit, because he looked like he got injured in the first game, but he kept playing. He said, "I'm not going off." So Veer Fafita and Sam Lousy both play for my team, the Scarlets. So I'm going to be in my Tonga jersey and my Scarlets hat. I actually have a Scarlets hat. Wait, it's here. So this is what Brad Moore had. Can you see that? This is a flat cap with Scarlets badge on it. I've got my headphones on, so it doesn't fit. But yes, I'll be wearing this, and I've got a Scarlet scarf as well. I'm going to be taking. So I'm going to hopefully be going Scarlets at the side of the pitch, and hopefully get some attention on myself. So is anybody not predicting a Scotland win?
No,
Scotland are going to win.
Yeah, by 10.
By 10. Ooh, that's a close game. We haven't seen Scotland's team yet. I'm not sure if Scotland really has a B team. I think they just go full strength every time. Anyway, first try scorer, I'm going to go Darcy Graham, because he's my favourite Scotland player. And every time I see him play, there's a voice in my head that goes, he's a bit like Shane Williams. And there's another voice in my head that goes, you can't say things like that, Hugh. So,
sorry. You're going to be hunted in Scotland if you one day go to Scotland. You're going to be so hunted in this. Scotland.
I'm mean about Scotland all the time, Francisco. So I'm already fully going to be number 1. Right, Wales versus Australia. I can't call this. You guys have to tell me which way it's going to go, because I can't. I've learned not to back Wales through my life. So okay, you guys have to convince me that we're going to win.
For me, Wales win comfortably. I think Australia are, they're not in a good place.
When was the last time we won comfortably? We never win comfortably.
Based on Australia's form to date, and yeah, I just think Wales they'd be more up for it. Look where Wales are now. I think it's going to be Wales' victory by 10 points. I'm backing myself. Australia in a bad space, and Gatton will have Wales in a good space, I think, for this game. It'll be, the tactics won't be pretty, but they'll do the job. What do you think, Francisco?
I agree with you. I think it's always a close game, but if Wales go down to the last 15 minutes on the lead by 10 points or 5 points, the Wallabies going to lose their focus and going to try silly things, and Wales will do exactly what they did against Fiji. Just wait, and then pounce, and then it's done. If the Wallabies bring Tupu and Skelton to the match, if they are not 100% fit, it's going to backfire in their faces, and they won't have a chance. I think Wales at the moment has a powerful loose forwards, and the scrum is purring. You played against one of the best scrums in the World Cup this year. It was against Fiji, and you made something out of it. So I am with Enda. I back the Wales.
Okay, and I'm going to go Josh Adams to score the first try because Josh Adams is a big game player.
Jack Morgan, man. Jack Morgan. Jack the Hitman Morgan. Oh,
Jack Morgan creates the try. So Jack Morgan
He's
runs
gonna
99%
score
of the
it.
way to the line and then passes it to someone else to score
he's
just out of
gonna
the goodness
score
of
it.
his. All right, you talked me into it.
I don't think we have a choice.
Right, come on.
13 cap in 5 tries. Of course, he's going to score against Australia.
Okay, I think that's the end of the round, so I don't want to go too far. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the last game of the weekend. Cool, right. And then on to the fantasy team. I'm going to be real with the listeners. There's a lot of team announcements that are going to come out between us recording this and when the games are played, so this is going to change. But for the sake of the pod, let's go with it. So, Francisco, I'm going to pick my favourite Portugal player to play in the centres. I'm going to pick Appleton. I've been desperate to get him in the team ever since we started doing this. I watched him play in the warm-up games, and I loved the way he carries himself. So he for me is the player that I'm bringing in.
You want advice? I can give you a good advice for this match if you want to.
Okay.
Change Huerte for Nicolas Martins.
He's a Chile player, right? Yeah.
A Portuguese player. No. Portuguese player.
Okay.
Nicolas Martin. I call him Martins, but it's Martin.
This one.
He's listed as a lock. He's a loose forward. It's cheating.
Okay.
I don't care about cheating.
No, that's okay, but I think there's a lot of players who are kind of in the wrong positions. There was a list that went round on Twitter about the best players in the back row.
Marta, for example.
Yeah.
Marta is wing as is listed as a center.
Ah, okay. Right. Again, so if anyone's not familiar with Francisco's got a YouTube channel where he's been doing introductions to some of the European teams. And Francisco, what was the amazing stat about the Georgia captain and his record for the Black Lion?
Talking about Tapzadze? Sorry.
The one where it's about his winning record when he plays for Black Lion.
No, that's Sharikadze, the center. Sharikadze won't give you many points, unfortunately, because most of his work is assisting or doing the invisible work, like I say. If I was for the Georgia, I don't know the team because I don't know if even Ashvili is going to play from the start. I think he has a place, but let's wait.
Gorgatz is going to play, surely.
Gorgatz is going to play, yeah, but he's going to be targeted from the first minute. And he's a very good tackler, but he's not going to be the guy who's going to make more tackles. That's even Ashvili.
Okay. Right, let's go even Ashvili then. Oh,
I can give you advice also. Hooker, Mamukashvili against Portugal normally scores at least one try. The hooker. You have Bonami. Okay. It's a good shot. It's a good shot. No, don't change it. Yeah.
Okay, don't change it. The team's just gone funny. Something I'm gonna have to reload the page. My team's reset. Okay. We're gonna have to abandon this bit. I'm afraid the whole team's completely crashed. I needed and one thing that I do remember that I need is a fly half. The D-Max probably not going to be playing in this game. Because New Zealand aren't playing this round. So I need a new fly half. So who are we going?
Bigger.
You know well that's not a question. Like you know well who I'm going to pick. So
you're going for your man Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get injured.
He's going to score. I feel like he's going to score again. He's going to score a try. It's going to be brilliant. I can't wait.
So Ben Smith has been riling people up on Twitter today, talking about Ben Smith, the journalist, not the former All Black, talking about how Australia are going to be trying to injure Johnny Sexton from minute one. And I can see that, to be honest. I can see who am I thinking? So here's a hypothetical to you, Ender. Is it worth getting a red card for injuring Johnny Sexton because of the team that Ireland are without him? Francisco shaking his head.
I don't like to think about those things. And like one thing as well on Sexton, he's a tough man. Like he's well able to, like he's been targeted his entire career. And as a reason he gets hit late, it's because he plays the ball to the line. He's not afraid. And he always gives that pass at the last second. That's why he gets smashed. And he'll be fine. He'll get on with it like he always does. And I think if teams, and I think refs know that he's targeted. And hopefully the ref is on top of teams hitting him late. I have no problem with teams hitting him like if they're committed or whatnot, but he's a tough dude. He'll be fine.
This is bringing up a memory for me as a Scarlets fan when we played Leinster in the Pro 14 final, and James Davis did like the most marginal, softest, latest hit on Johnny Sexton ever. Like it was nothing. And the TMO comes in, check, and there's a late shot on Sexton on the halfway line. Sexton boots it down into the 22, and Leinster score off a driving maul. I was so pissed off. That's what it's like supporting Welsh teams in the URC, guys. Anyway, right. So that's the end of that. So now I think we're on an advert break, right? This is the ad break.
We are indeed.
Take us to the
ad. So for audio listeners, apologies, we are going to a break now. But for our YouTube viewers, you can keep going with no ads. So with this does move us on to our Tier 2 roundup. Francisco, is club rugby being played in Portugal currently?
Currently, no. It's going to start in the next couple of weeks with our top 10, how we call it, the second division and third division. In the men's side, the women's also starts in October.
Okay. And when does the Europe Super Cup start?
December this year. It's going to be November to December. It's going to be very quick this year, just 5 games for each team. So the pool stage, you're going to play free. They are into pools. There's what I call the King's pool, which is the 4 top teams, and the other pool is the novices or the ones that last season didn't perform well. So 3 teams from the King pool will go to the quarterfinals. The best team from the novice going to also go to the quarterfinals. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because Black Lion players will need to rest. Lusitanian players will need to rest. So I think the Spanish and the Iberians and Tel Aviv Heat do have a good shot of making to the final this year.
Well, we'll be covering it on this pod, so everyone should stay tuned because we'll be covering it. And we'll also be doing a deep dive on Black Lion at some point because they're playing in the Challenge Cup this year and they're playing against the Scarlets. So I'm looking forward to that.
They're playing everything. Curry Cup, Challenge Cup.
Are they in the Curry Cup again?
There was talks. They were going to be kicked out. They were going to resign. And now I'm hearing that maybe they're going to play some games. It's strange. It's a very strange situation.
Oh. It's such a great story. We don't have time to go into it this year, but their story of them in the Curry Cup is such a cool story. Anyway, speaking of the Scarlets, as I like to do, they played a game this weekend. They played against the Barbarians. The Barbarians have been touring the UK, so they beat Northampton Saints quite heavily. They beat Bristol Bears quite heavily, and they've got Harlequins coming up this week but the Scarlets became the first team to beat the Barbarians on tour. So well done to the lads. Rob Evans and Aaron Shingler both played for the Barbars against their former team, the Scarlets, and Rob Evans scored a try as well. So it was a great day out. Unfortunately, it wasn't televised. There was no way of watching it, but I'm told by everyone who was there that it was a great day out. And it was the Phil Bennett Memorial game as well. So they had a big number 10 carved into the centre circle. So that was nice, and everyone enjoyed it. On to the Pro Day 2. Von is still top. They could only draw, though, with... the pronunciations for these Béziers.
Béziers.
So they drew. So that's 3 draws. There was 2 draws last week and another draw this week. So which is quite unusual. Quite a high number of draws going around at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Provence are only 1 point behind them as well. So it's quite tight at the top. Biarritz sitting bottom. Biarritz won their first game, but the stories coming out of that club is a bit of a crazy show at the top of the club with lots of things going on. So unfortunately things not going that well. Now on to NPC. So Endo, we've made a concerted effort on this pod to follow the NPC as closely as possible. It's proving tricky. Why is this league so difficult to follow as a product?
Yeah, I think we discussed this briefly. Like for me, like on social media, like we all saw those clips, didn't we, of the All Blacks the official All Blacks Twitter account posting that there was like the All Blacks weren't playing and now there was very little rugby on in general that weekend, yet the NPC was continuing, and it was just sad to see. And then of course a lot of the NPC clubs accounts just, you know, reminded everyone that the NPC is continuing, and it's poor timing, first of all, especially during the World Cup, that it's still going ahead. But from an Irish and UK perspective, it's like Sky Sports does not push this competition at all, even though they have the rights and they show between 2 and 3 games a week. But it's just quite frustrating because like they're great games. You see All Blacks, you see you know, former All Blacks. Like it's a great competition, I think. Like it is a step down from Super Rugby, but it's still exciting to watch. But it doesn't seem to be in a good place. So let's kind of watch the space. But like a lot of people, like whenever I post about the NBC, it gets zero traction. There just doesn't seem to be an interest even from the broadcaster. So I'm not sure. We'll keep covering it, I think. But yeah, it seems to be a very difficult league just to simply follow. Like even the official account.
Yeah, there being 14 teams in it as well just makes it so confusing. And they have like 2 game days a week. So they play on Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And like we try and post the results, but we forget. Like, oh crap, there was a NPC game on today. And obviously in the UK, it's while we're all either at work or commuting to work. So it's just a bit of a nightmare. But like I say, we'll keep doing our best. Wellington are top. Still, they're unbeaten. Canterbury, Tasman and Taranaki in 2nd, 3rd and 4th are all separated by 2 points, and then Auckland are only 2 points further back from that, so it's still tight at the top. It's an exciting league. And then Southland, sadly, are still lagging behind, winless at the bottom. What else we got, mate?
So in terms of the Welsh Premiership, Llandovery, I should say, maintained their perfect start to the season as they beat Ponty, whilst Newport scored a big away win to RGC. Now, I think the big one I really wanted to bring up was the English Prem Cup. So the Premiership Cup, which is continuing, and we've seen TNT Sports in Ireland and the UK make its rugby debut. So they've been showing 1 game per weekend. But this past weekend, in terms of overall results, we saw Jersey, who beat Bath, as we predicted, which was, and yeah, I don't know if either of you guys have seen the pictures or any coverage of this game. There was a massive crowd. It's great to see Bath, even last season, playing in the Premiership. Like even though they weren't doing well, they were sitting close to bottom, at times even at bottom, and they still always get a great crowd. So I love to see that. But yeah, it was great to see Jersey beat them. Coventry drew with Quins. Ealing made it 2 wins in a row versus Premiership opposition, and they beat Bristol. And things are not going well for the Prem. So there are rumours reported in the Telegraph of a revolt brewing within the RFU, which we'll keep tabs on going forward. Who knows how true they are, but yeah, hopefully it all will be revealed soon. And that actually brings us to the end of our Tier 2 roundup. And just moving on kind of quickly to the TV guide. I won't go through everything this week. I will just... We all know the Rugby World Cup is coming up, so the full fixture list will be with you guys tomorrow, and where you can watch it and at what times. But just to bear in mind as well, there is NPC action this weekend on Friday and on Saturday mornings. The Foster Rock Super Series is back as well on Friday and Saturday, I should say, actually. So keep an eye out on the Twitter page for that information tomorrow. And that brings us to the end. First thing I wanted to say is a massive thanks to Francisco. You've been an absolute pleasure to have on, and hopefully you won't. Hopefully this isn't the last time we have you on. Put it that way. But yeah, honestly, thanks a million. You've been brilliant.
I hope it's not the last time, because I really enjoy it coming here for the first time. And I heard your podcasts like 4 or 5 times, and it was good. When you sent me the invitation on, I think it was on Saturday or Sunday, because I'm mixing the 2 days because it's completely mind-boggling. That weekend, it's not it's all mashed up and so on. But when I got the message, I was so happy. And it doesn't matter if it's BBC or Sport TV in Portugal with you. I just love to talk with people, and when are nice people and knowledgeable like you, for me it's perfect. So it's never a bother. I have all the time in the world to talk to you, and it for me was a lot, one time life experience that I hope to do again in the near future.
You're too kind, sir. Thank you so much for joining and sharing us your insight and giving us things that will educate us better. And I'm sure if anybody's not following Francisco either on Twitter or on YouTube, you are not fully educated on rugby, in my opinion. So please give him a search. There'll be links to all of his stuff in the description below, and check his stuff out. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening / watching. Just do it all again next week. Have a great week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.